Cars did not leave a deep impact on society. The Cars movies didn't make a lot of money either, not compared to other successful Pixar movies of the time. And yet, the Cars merchandise sales are astronomical. According to a 2023 IndieWire article, there's only one movie merchandise line that's made more money than Cars. Cars is apparently second behind Star Wars. Okay, so Cars merchandise is allegedly second behind Star Wars. Let me explain. There's a whole bunch of lists of movie merchandise lines, and on some lists, Cars is a little bit lower than second place. But one thing is for sure, Cars is one of the highest grossing movie merchandise lines of all time. So here's what we have to ask ourselves. Why does Cars merchandise sell so well? The first Cars movie was released in 2006. People didn't necessarily race to movie theaters to see Cars, not like they did with other Pixar movies anyway. But Cars resonated with the audience that watched it, obviously. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video. In 2011, just before Cars 2 came out, CNBC reported that Cars merchandise had made $10 billion since 2006. 10 billion! That's such a big number, I can't even fit it on the screen. I mean, I could actually just move the number over. And Cars outperformed other media franchises by a landslide. Finding Nemo, which is considered to be one of the greatest Pixar movies of all time, was released 3 years before Cars. And Finding Nemo made double what Cars did at the box office. A few weeks after Cars came out, Disney announced that even though Cars only earned half as much at the box office, based on the same time frame, Cars merchandise made 10 times as much money as Finding Nemo merchandise. In the summer of '06, the Cars merchandise demand was way more than anybody had anticipated, because apparently people needed Cars stuff, and smart businesses follow the money, obviously. So I feel like it's safe to assume that even more Cars movies, a spin-off series, and shorts were made due to the astronomical merchandise sales, when other Pixar movies, which made way more at the box office, did not get sequels until way later. The thing is, Disney and Pixar basically denied the allegations that the entire Cars franchise is due to merchandise sales. According to Cars 1 and 2 director John Lasseter, Cars 2 wasn't made because the merchandise sales for Cars were astronomical. It was made because of art. I didn't know that art was spelled C-A-S-H. John Lasseter was asked a few months after Cars 2 came out if he had been forced, basically, to make the sequel because of the merchandise success. John Lasseter denied that idea and said, quote, "It's not true. My deepest desire is to entertain people by making great movies, and we did that with Cars 2. In the same interview, John Lasseter also said, "I make movies for that little boy who loves the character so much that he wants to pack his clothes in a Lightning McQueen suitcase." You're, really convincing us that Cars 2 wasn't made to sell merchandise, John. Normally when a movie gets older, the merchandise line becomes less relevant, so the sales go down. But with Cars merchandise, normal movie trends weren't followed. Things went down a little differently. Between the release of Cars in 2006 and the release of Cars 2 in 2011, the Cars merchandise line sales increased year after year. That doesn't normally happen. So why was this happening? There's one main reason, which might be a little bit surprising. It's not as if all movie merchandise is typically geared towards children, especially when a movie franchise has mass appeal across the 4 quadrants, like with most Pixar movies. So it's not like all movie merchandise is geared towards children, normally, even with family movies. But with Cars, the movie merchandise success was basically because of, the toys geared towards the children. When you think about it, it actually makes a ton of sense. Let's compare Cars merchandise with Finding Nemo merchandise again. With Finding Nemo, the main characters were fish. What's a kid supposed to do with a toy fish? Just, pick it up and wave it in the air and pretend that it's swimming? Fish toys were never a popular genre of toys before Finding Nemo. But with a toy car, there's been Matchbox, Hot Wheels, I'll even throw Transformers in there. Cars, in general, have been a successful type of toy for years. The cars weren't just cool looking Hot Wheel cars, but they were lovable, larger than life toys of cars toys. of Cars. So the merchandise explosion was a natural fit in the children's market because the merchandise fit as an extension of popular toys. But why were Cars merchandise sales increasing every year between 2006 and 2010 without a new movie? That doesn't even make sense, right? A computer animated movie typically takes 5 to 6 years to make, and the gap between Cars and Cars 2 was 5 years. But Pixar employed a strategy that kept Cars relevant between movies. So while Pixar was making Cars 2, they were also coming out with little car shorts. You know, little Cars adventures that only lasted a few minutes, and these Cars stories were blasted across the Disney Channel, which is said to have been watched by an estimated 68 million children around the world. With Cars 2 in 2011, Disney and Pixar prepared for the largest licensing drop in the history of Hollywood for a single film. Not only did they have 300 different kinds of Cars toys ready for Cars 2, but they had a ton of different licensing deals with different brands, like mac and cheese and suitcases. And Cars 2 merchandise made bank. But was Cars 2 actually a good movie? I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really think so, and I've actually trashed it in a prior video. Pixar has what, 24 movies? Each item on that tab, even the shorts, are guaranteed to be extraordinary. And Cars 2 is also on that tab as well. I like Cars 1 and Cars 3, but Cars 2, nobody cares. To keep the Cars merchandise train rolling, even though Cars was apparently about the story, Disney and Pixar released Cars 3 in 2017, and they released more Cars shorts. And on top of that, Disney Toon Studios, not Pixar, released 2 spin-off plane movies about planes. Even Disney's California Adventure got in on the hype. Cars Land was first being developed as a generic California Cars Land because it was California Adventure and, cars and California. But when the Cars merchandise line did so well, I'm so sorry, I mean when Cars was such a big artistic hit, Disney said to themselves, what if we take this proposed Cars Land and retheme it to like the Cars and Pixar, and then we had a Cars Land. So, that's exactly what they did. When you step into Cars Land, you're inside the small town of Radiator Springs, which is supposed to be in Arizona, apparently, even though it's in California Adventure Theme Park. But I'll forgive the whole Arizona thing because it's so great. But I've still noticed, okay? So Cars sold a lot of merchandise, but there's an even bigger question here. Why is Cars not really relevant to society, even though it sells a crap ton of merchandise? Star Wars and Jurassic Park and Frozen had universal appeal that really hit all sorts of market segments. But then Cars sold a crap ton of kids' toys, and that doesn't necessarily enter the cultural conversation in the same way. It's also really difficult to determine how much money the Cars merchandise line is making at the time of this video, because Disney and Pixar haven't specified. But with a 4th Cars movie rumored to be on the way, and with Disney keeping Cars fresh with shorts as recently as 2022, Cars is clearly still selling stuff. There is one merchandise line that beats Cars though, without a question, and that's Star Wars. Star Wars laid the foundation for movie merchandise in general and changed the world in the process. If you want to know how Star Wars changed the world, please click on this video next. And thanks for watching.